understanding of Bison as well, because as I said, Bison doesn't work the same way as a top-down parser. So let us do a brief recap of what we learned on bottom-up parsers on 12th. So this is basically a type of bottom-up parser known as shift-reduce parsing. The meaning of shift-reduce will be clear as we go forward. And as I said in the lab and the class itself, that this type of parser attempts to construct the parse tree uh, in a bottom-up manner. Means it starts from the leaves, that is, it starts from the terminals for a change. So for top-down parser, we start with the start symbol and then keep on expanding towards the leaf nodes. Here, it is the opposite. We start at the leaves and we somehow try to get to the starting node, which is the root, basically the starting symbol of the grammar. So we can think of this process basically of a reduction process, reducing the string W, string which consists entirely of terminals, to the start symbol of the grammar. Okay, and we have already seen in the lab that it is not so easy to do, because you have to be careful about what you are reducing. That is what is most important. In case of top-down parser, things are a little easier because you know what you are trying to expand. Okay, you know that you have to expand the leftmost non-terminal and stuff like that. The only issue is if there are multiple rules for a particular non-terminal symbol, then you have to choose between them wisely. And we have already seen while constructing the predictive parsing table that it can be done if you have an LL1 type of grammar, then it can be done without any ambiguity. But yes, but in
Sir,
case of
sir, left recursive tree we will prefer in both top down as well as bottom up, no?
no, in top-down parser you cannot have a left recursion tree at all. Okay, because left recursion can cause you uh, to go into infinite loop. That is the problem. Okay, so we cannot have left recursion in case of a top-down parser, but we can have right recursion in both top-down and bottom-up parser. But as I mentioned in the lab, if you have a right recursive grammar and you are using a parser which is bottom-up like Bison, like a parser generated by Bison, then you are actually uh, building on the stack depth. Okay, you can build on the stack depth easily, so that can cause problem. So and as we have already noted, it actually produces the output in a backward manner. It first displays the last thing, the last parsed word, and then works backward to the first word. That is sometimes in fact very often we don't require that. That's why in general, in uh, with bottom up parsers you prefer the left recursive grammar. Okay, but it's not a mandatory thing. So we basically start with the terminals and then we try to. So in case of top down parser it was easy because you have a set of terminals and non terminal symbols, and you have to basically choose the leftmost non terminal symbol to expand if it is a left sentential form. So only problem of ambiguity comes if there are multiple rules for the same non-terminal. And we have seen while constructing the predictive parsing table or LL1 table that we can handle that. If it is an LL1 grammar, you can always do that without any ambiguity. In case of a bottom-up parser, the problem is what?
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Sir, is there any algorithm exist which convert left recursion grammar to right recursion grammar?
No, there is no such grammar. I mean, sorry, there is a procedure to convert left recursive grammar into something which does not contain left recursion. That's the most important thing. So, yeah, basically it creates the right recursive grammar. So you cannot it does not keep the left recursive calls. That's what I can say. Okay, doesn't mean that it will be always right recursive. Please note that. Right recursive has something special. Okay, means it will be rightmost symbol which will be recursive, right? But when you remove left recursion, you essentially have a grammar where there is no left recursion existing. That much I can say. Okay. Yes, does that answer your question? Who was asking this? I'm sorry.
Yes, sir. Sir, Atul, sir.
Yeah, Atul. Okay, so um, if you are converting from a left recursive grammar to something which does not contain left recursion, you can't say that it will be always right recursive for that matter. Okay. I'll probably try to give you an example later on. Okay, let's continue with the discussion today. Okay, but if it is a direct left recursion elimination, you will probably get a right recursion all the time. Okay, I'll give you the answer in a better manner later on. Okay, thanks. I'll point it. Thanks for pointing it out, Atul. Okay, but right now I don't want to waste time there. I'll come back to you on that, maybe offline. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Very good. Okay, good question. Okay, anyway, so the problem with bottom-up parser is that here you don't have such an easy thing. Like, for example, let us see a like, for example, if you are doing a say top-down parser like this, so S producing A, B, and then A, B. So you sorry. So here you can see that the application of the rule is pretty straightforward. You have a non-terminal symbol capital A, and there is a rule capital A produces small a, and you apply it. Okay. If you are trying to do it the other way around, like from AAB, you should go to, let's put the symbol like this. This is what you do for bottom-up parser. Here the issue is more complicated. Why? Because how do you know that from the first step you go to the second step by choosing the second small a to be reduced to capital A? Okay, it could be the first a which you could have done this. Instead of this, you could have done this, right? But then you can see that it cannot be reduced to S because S produces the right hand side A, small a, capital A, small b. So choosing which which set of terminals or which substring to be reduced to the right hand side of a rule is important. Okay, so here not only the rule but identifying the substring to be reduced is also important, and that is what is at the heart of bottom-up parser. Okay, at least the ones we are going to discuss. So it is not as easy as a top-down parser. So what the shift reduce type of parsing activity does is construct the parse tree for an input string beginning at the leaves and working towards the root. Okay. So this is the general form. Now the problem is at each reduction step, a particular substring matching has to be done. As I showed in the earlier example, a particular substring has to be identified and matched with whom? Matched with the right hand side of a production. Okay. So right hand side of the production has to be matched with that substring, and there can be many places where that can match. So identifying which substring to match, and then replace it by the left-hand side of the production rule is what is the important activity of reduction. Okay, so that is what is meant by reduction. And now, if the substring is chosen correctly at each step, a rightmost derivation is traced out in reverse. Now, this is something we need to understand in some more detail. Like suppose this is we have this kind of production rules. S producing A, B, A producing A, something else. A producing A and B producing B. Okay, these are the set of rules, simple rules we have. So here, if it is a top-down parser, and if it is a rightmost derivation, what would be the next step? Can you tell me? So this is a rightmost derivation for a change. What would be the next step? Yes? What would be the next step? One of you please tell me. A, capital B. So what would be the next one? It is a rightmost derivation. Which one should be expanded? Capital A or capital B? Yes?
Sir, can you repeat?
Yeah.
Sir, capital A.
Okay, I am saying from S, we have the rule A, small a, capital B. And then capital A produces small a, capital B produces small b. These are the set of rules. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Now, I have this step. Now, I am using a rightmost derivation. Okay. Then, what would be the next sentential form?
The capital B.
Capital B, yes, sir.
Okay. So, capital B will be expanded here. Yes. A, capital A, small b.
Capital A, capital B, both will be expanded. Because sir, capital A will expand it into small a and capital B will expand it into small b here.
Right.
And sir,
no.
it will be 2AB, AAB.
Right, but first we'll handle capital B because that is the right sentential. This is the right sentential form, which is rightmost derivation. Okay, this is
Okay,
the
sir.
next step, and of course, the next step would be A, B. Okay, so this is the rightmost sentential form of the string small a, small b. Okay, now if we want to trace it in reverse, so we should be doing this, right? And then, okay, so this is what is traced in reverse. We start with the string consisting of entirely terminal symbols, and from there we trace backward the rightmost sentential form to go to the starting symbol. Okay, that's what will be the bottom line shows what we can do with we are basically tracing out a rightmost derivation in reverse in the bottom line. Is that clear? Is that clear? Now, my point here is that why did you do this? You have a starting point here as small a, small b. Now, you could have chosen this guy as well. That is a perfectly valid reduction as well. But as I said, this is not going to let us go anywhere because there is no such rule as something which ends with capital A. Okay. Am I clear? Am I clear? Okay. So, as I said, choosing the appropriate substring is very important. So if the substring is chosen correctly at every step, then we will be able to trace out a rightmost derivation in reverse using this shift reduce type of parser for bottom-up parsing activity. That's my point. We have already seen this example. I am not going to repeat it. So this is how you basically trace out from a given string, you come to the starting symbol. And this is the activity of a bottom-up parser using the reduction type of activity. Why it is called shift as well will be obvious in a few minutes. Okay, one important concept related to bottom-up parsing is called handle. There are three terms you have to be very carefully observant. These three terms are handle, handle pruning, and viable prefix. These three terms are very important in case of bottom-up parser. We need to understand. If we want to understand what is the substring, how do you choose the substring to be selected as a candidate for reduction in case of bottom-up parsers? Okay. So please be careful. What is a handle? A handle of a string is a substring that matches the right-hand side of a production. That is very easy to understand, yes. So you have, like here, you have AAB, then the second small a is chosen as the symbol or the substring to be replaced by the left-hand side of a production rule. Okay, so here it is the handle. So handle is a substring that matches the right-hand side of a production, whose reduction to the non-terminal on the left-hand side of the production represents one step along the reverse of a rightmost derivation. Okay, so here in this step, you are choosing this guy, this second A, as the substring, and you are reducing by the capital A, which is the left-hand side of this production rule, as you can see. So right-hand side small a is the substring, which is the second A here, the second A here, and you are replacing it by the left-hand side of this production, which is capital A. This is important. So this is basically a handle. Okay. In many cases, the leftmost substring beta in many cases, the leftmost substring beta that matches the right side of some production A producing beta is not a handle, because a reduction by the production A producing beta yields a string that cannot be reduced to the start symbol. Okay, I think you understand it perfectly. Like for example, here, instead of choosing the second A, had you chosen the first A, that also matches the right-hand side of this production. But if you do the reduction like this is not going to get us to the start symbol at all. So you understand that even if you match some beta, doesn't mean it is the handle, because that might not be a suitable reduction. Am I clear? Am I clear? Please say something, because this is very important. Did you understand that?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
matching the substring doesn't mean it can be reduced. Okay, so there should be a more concrete and informal definition of handle. So handle is a very important concept when you go to the bottom-up parser. That is what is
Sir.
important. Yes, identify.
Sir, handle second part I had a bit confusion. Sir, second part it is, sir, please go to the previous slide, please.
Yeah.
Sir, on the second part, it is saying the reduction to the non-terminal on the left side of the production. So
Yes.
this part I can understand.
Yeah, as I said, like here, like for example, here you are choosing this small a as the substring, that's the handle, and you are
Yes, sir.
reducing it to capital A. Capital
Yes,
is
sir.
what? Capital A is basically the left-hand side of a production rule. As I said, in case of context-free grammar, the ones we are interested in, the left-hand side of a production rule can consist of a single non-terminal. So that's what is happening.
Yes, sir. Means left side cannot have more than one non-terminal.
Right, absolutely. In case of a context-free grammar, that is a fundamental assumption.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Sure. Okay, so what is a formal definition? Formally, a handle of a right sentential form gamma. What is gamma here? Like for example, in this particular case, the small a, small b is gamma. That is a right sentential form. Is a production, so a handle of gamma, that's what is meant. A handle of gamma is a production A producing beta, and a position of gamma where the string beta may be found and replaced by A. Okay, like for example, here you can see this small a is the first small a and this small a is the second small a. Okay, so both are from capital A to small a kind of derivation. So if you choose first a, it does something. If you choose the second a, it does something else. So that means not only the right hand side of a production rule has to be chosen, but the position of that particular substring is also important. Okay, like here you have to say that A to capital A to small a, this reduction, or small a to capital A, this reduction is a handle only for the second A. So this is the positional aspect of handle. So handle is not only a production like this, it is a position also of the sentential form. So the moment you replace beta by capital A, you get the previous right sentential form in a rightmost derivation of gamma. Like for example, you start here and you choose the second A and reduce it by capital A. That means you get this kind of a sentential form, which is also a right sentential form, and this is exactly the previous step of this guy, as you can see from the topmost derivation. From here, this is the previous one you get. So here also you can see, after applying the handle, you get the previous right sentential form. Okay, I suggest you understand a little bit this point, a little bit. If you understand first, you will understand the second part also. Okay, and please note that if a grammar is unambiguous, every right sentential form of the grammar has exactly one handle. This is also a very important point. Okay, so just understand these two things, and I'll be right with you in a minute. Okay. So one important thing to understand, that once you choose a handle, anything right of that contains only terminal symbols. So that is a very important point to understand. We'll see many examples of this as we go forward. Now, if we come to this example right here, so from A, B, 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 C, D, E, we had reduced to A, capital A, B, C, D, E, then A, capital A, D, E. then A, capital B, small e, and then S. This was the derivation. So if you look at this example right here, so if you look at this example, then here, this A, B, B, C, D, E is a right sentential form, and we are trying to trace out the rightmost derivation in reverse. So capital A producing B is the handle. As you can see, the first B, small b, is reduced to capital A. So capital A producing small b is the handle, and the position is basically the second element in the string. Okay, so this is the position. So we can say that the handle is A producing small b at position 2. Now, if you go to the next one, A, capital A, B, C, D, E, E, then the next step is A, capital A, D, E. That means A, small b, small c. This is the handle. So capital A producing capital A, small b, small c is the handle. And again, the position is at 2. Okay. So for this particular sentential form, this is the handle at position 2. That's it. So if you look at this particular diagram, A producing beta is the handle for the parse tree alpha in the parse tree for alpha beta W. I think you can see it pretty well. Okay, maybe I should make it a little larger by using this. So here you can see that alpha is the left hand side of the tree. The left subtree is alpha, followed by the middle subtree, which is beta, followed by the right subtree, which is W, and A producing beta after alpha and before W is the handle. So the figure portrays the handle A producing beta in the parse tree for a right sentential form alpha beta W. The handle represents the leftmost complete subtree consisting of a node and all its children. Okay. So it is the leftmost complete subtree. Has to be a subtree, has to be complete, and has to be leftmost. Because we are tracing out the rightmost derivation in reverse, so no wonder we have to handle leftmost part first to get to the root node in reverse. Reducing beta to A in alpha beta W can be thought of as pruning the handle. So means A has under it a big subtree called beta. So that subtree is now pruned. Pruned means basically reduced, you can say, pruned off all its branches to the root node, which is A. So after the handle is applied, you won't have beta, but you will have alpha followed by capital A followed by W. Now capital A is just a single non-terminal symbol. So you can say that the whole of beta, the substring, is pruned to a single non-terminal capital A. So all the children of A is removed from the parse tree. And this is how you keep on removing each and every possible handle by the corresponding non-terminal symbols of the left-hand side of a production. So you keep on pruning till you get a single non-terminal, which is the starting symbol. And then you can say that your handle pruning is successful in identifying the parse tree. Okay, am I clear?
So this pruning is consists of alpha beta both.
No, it is not a alpha beta pruning as such. It is basically, it could be like you can subdivide alpha into alpha 1 and alpha 2. Okay, and then alpha 2 could be the handle pruning, could be the candidate for handle pruning. Okay, so it doesn't really matter where is alpha ending and where is beta starting, but it has to be some part of the substring in your rightmost sentential form in some step. Okay, so if you go to the go to the string which consists of all terminals, that means you are at the last step. You are trying to trace out from the last step, but you may be somewhere in between where there is a combination of terminal and non-terminal symbols in the parse tree. So in that case, you actually end up parsing, end up pruning that part of the subtree. Okay. Muhammad Yasser, what's your name? Muhammad Yasser Arafat, right? Let me check what's his name.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you are too late, so I'll be giving you only one attendance. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. Okay. So it doesn't matter where beta and alpha are. Okay, it just matters that alpha and beta should be some part of the subtree. Okay, some part of the subtree. So you have to choose that beta wisely, and that is what is meant by handle and handle pruning. So here is another interesting observation of handle pruning. A rightmost derivation in reverse can be obtained by handle pruning. Just now I explained what is handle pruning. So we start with a string of terminals W. Our objective is to parse W. We have already done that in our Bison labs. Like for example, we have, I don't know, 1 plus 2 minus 3, something like that. Okay, that is a string of terminals only, and we have to go back from this string which consists entirely of terminals into one which consists of a single non-terminal, that is the starting symbol. That is what our task is. So if W is a sentence of the grammar, then W is gamma n. W means consisting only of terminals. Gamma n is the nth right sentential form of some as yet unknown rightmost derivation. So if you look at the derivation, S equal to gamma 0, gamma 0 produces gamma 1 in a rightmost manner, followed by gamma 2 ... gamma n. Gamma n is W, that is the final string consisting entirely of terminals, and gamma 0 is nothing but the starting non-terminal symbol. So if you keep on deriving gamma 0 through gamma n using right sentential forms, okay, your task with bottom-up parser should be to start with gamma n and trace backward the intermediate steps gamma n minus 1, gamma n minus 2, ... gamma 2, then gamma 1, then gamma 0, that is S. That is what you are going to do with bottom-up parsing. So to reconstruct this derivation in reverse order, we locate the handle beta n in gamma n. So every gamma n should have a beta n, which is the handle. As I said, the handle is basically the substring of gamma n. Here it is called beta n, and beta n has to be replaced by the left-hand side of the production of A producing beta n. Okay, the moment you do that, then you get gamma n minus 1. Okay, please note this. If it is clear, then understanding bottom-up parsing activity is rather clear. Of course, it takes time to understand because it is not really intuitive. It is kind of counterintuitive. The one we study in theory of computing is basically the straightforward one. We keep on expanding the non-terminals, but here we are not expanding non-terminals. Rather, we are reducing the terminals into the left-hand side of a production rule, that is one non-terminal. This way, we go back to the start symbol. So the reverse of the sequence of production used in the reduction is a rightmost derivation for the input string. This is important to understand. Now, here we consider the following grammar: E producing E plus E producing E star E producing parenthesis E, and E producing ID. Very simple grammar. As you can see, it consists of various forms of left recursion, but that's okay because we are now in the domain of bottom-up parser, so right recursion is not an issue anymore. You can see ID1 plus ID2 plus star ID3. Okay, I think all of you know why I am using the subscripts ID1, ID2, ID3, right? Any of you have any doubt about that? Why instead of ID I am using ID1? Because there is no ID1 in these production rules. Only ID is there. Am I clear? Why ID1 instead of ID?
To identify everyone
Yes.
different.
Basically, these are all similar type of tokens. As I already mentioned, the parser expects a stream of tokens. This is only our notational convenience. Since these are all same type of token ID, in order to distinguish them positionally, we have used the subscript. So ID1 means the first token of ID, the second ID2 means the second ID, and the third ID3 means the third ID. They are all same type of token, but occurring at different positions, hence they are distinguished from each other. Now, in this right sentential form, you can say that your handle is ID1, and if you look at the grammar, the production rule is E producing ID. So you can reduce the right sentential form E producing ID by this by applying this production rule. So what do you get? You get E plus ID2 star ID3. Is this thing clear? How you can use a handle to trace one step backward in the rightmost derivation process? If this is clear, most of the things will be very clear, but it's not very easy to understand. Am I clear? Is it fine?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that you chose the handle ID1. Here the positional thing is clear by the numbering of the identifier itself, and you reduced it to capital E. So in the one step back to the right sentential form, it is E plus ID2 star ID3. Okay. Next, you are using the handle ID2. So you get E plus E star ID3. Okay. Then you choose ID3. So you get E plus E star E. Now, whether you should choose E plus E or E star E is all dependent on how you are generating your parser. Assume that the next handle to be chosen is E star E. So E star E is reduced to E. So you get the previous right sentential form E plus E, and then you get E. So you traced back from ID plus ID star ID to E. This is what is this kind of summarizes the activity of a shift reduced base bottom-up parser. Okay. So if you look at the way the parse tree is constructed, you start with IDs and then work backwards to E. So if I go to the drawing board, I can show you how the parse tree construction looks like. So first, you got, maybe I should use this. So you have ID1 plus ID star ID. So first, you chose this guy. Then you chose this guy. I should choose a different color. Then you chose this guy. So your sentential form now looks E plus E star E. Then what you did is chose this step. So E star E is now converted to E, reduced to E rather. And then so you can see that after this step, E plus E is reduced to E. So you essentially end up getting the rightmost derivation in reverse using this bottom-up parsing technique. Please take a look at this thoroughly, because this is going to be our basis for everything we do in bottom-up parser using the shift reduce technique. Okay, sorry about that, but I think we have understood what exactly is meant by the reduction steps made by shift reduce parser. Okay, and how to identify handles and what is exactly done when we get a handle. Okay, is it clear to all this step and the construction of the parse tree? Okay, now I have some more slides to discuss into the details of this. I'll be going skipping this for the time being because this will take up too much time. I'll come back to that maybe in the next class. So why shift reduce parsing requires a stack implementation? So these are some of the slides which explains that in much more detail. But let us go into the direct implementation of such a stack based parsing activity. Okay, so here we have a context free grammar like this: E produces E plus T or T. T produces T star F or F, and F produces ID. I think many of you have remembered this. This is the grammar with applying left factoring so that we can impose precedence relations between plus and star, and ambiguity is removed. This was the main target for factoring this grammar, left factoring this kind of grammar. Of course, we will keep the left recursion because left recursion has no problem with bottom-up parsers. Now, our string is ID star ID. Okay. So how can we trace the parsing algorithm using stack? Till now, what we have done here, if you look into this, we have identified handle and we have applied the production rule as a reduction step. Okay. Or we have used the reduction to go back one step in the leftmost derivation. But we absolutely never dealt with the implementation aspects, like how we are identifying ID star ID instead of ID plus ID, or instead of E plus E, how we identified E star E. So those things need to be clarified when we are talking about implementation of a parser, implementation of a parsing algorithm. Implementation means computer-based implementation. Okay, so you need to be very clear. And as I said, a stack is inevitable. A stack is important, but we are not going to discuss the theory behind that stack implementation right now. We are just going to see the mechanism, how the stack is used to identify the handles and apply the reduction and shifting procedure. Till now, we have only seen the reduction procedure. The concept of shifting will also be clear when we see this stack-based implementation. So please memorize this grammar: E producing E plus T or E producing T, T producing T star F or T producing F, and A producing ID. Okay, these are the set of production rules in the grammar. And our input string is ID star ID. Okay. So we have the stack. Okay, I think better it would be if I do it on. Okay. So the next page here, what we will do is we'll use this stack. So the stack is like this. So this is our stack. And what we have is ID star ID. So our input is ID star ID. ID star ID. So how does the stack help in performing the reduction? So as in the case of LL1 grammars, we need to put a dollar as the marker symbol for end of marker symbol. So we'll have a dollar here. And similarly, we'll have a dollar at the bottom of the stack to start with, rather top of the stack to start with. So we have a dollar at the top, and then we'll keep on pushing the symbols. Now here we'll see, in case of top-down parsing, on the stack top, we are generally having the a non-terminal symbol, and the input was a terminal symbol from the input string. So depending on that combination of non-terminal terminal symbol, we are doing the expansion process. Okay, that was what we are doing there. And in case the stack top contained a terminal symbol, we are trying to match it with the input symbol. Okay, that's what we are doing in case of top-down parsing. In case of bottom-up parsing, we'll see that things are a little different. Okay, we have to handle both terminal and non-terminal symbol on the stack. We can push any of them, or we can remove any of them as the situation demands. When we push a symbol onto the stack, we call it is a shifting action. That's where the shift part of the shift reduce parser comes. And reduction means we are actually removing those symbols from the stack top and reducing by the left hand side of the production rule. So when we reduce, we actually reduce one or more terminal and non-terminal symbol combination into one non-terminal and then push it back. This is the specialty of bottom-up parser, because in bottom-up parser, you are not only handling terminal symbols, but you are handling non-terminal symbols as well, because you might have to reduce a combination of both. In case of top-down parser, this is not really the case. You always have a combination of non-terminal and right. A non-terminal symbol can appear on the stack, of course, but a terminal symbol is what is input, and you basically, depending on that, you choose what exactly you are going to push on the stack. So it would be the right hand side of a production rule, which might be a combination of terminal and non-terminal symbol, of course, but you will never really replace a terminal by something else, because you cannot really expand a terminal. You can only expand a non-terminal. So please note this, that interesting difference. So we have ID star ID. So first thing it will do is it will put an ID here. So this ID will be erased. Okay. And then this ID will match. Okay, what are the rules? Let us write the rules clearly. Sorry. These are the rules. Okay. These are the rules. As you can see, these are the rules. Okay. So E producing E plus T or T producing T star F or F, or A producing ID. Okay. So we are choosing this handle A producing ID as the reduction. Okay. So what will be the activity? The activity will be, we'll erase this ID from the stack and push F, which is the left hand side of the production rule, on top. Okay. Now, okay, what we can do is, first we can see what is the right sentential form of this particular string, ID star ID. What is that? E producing E plus T, then since it is the rightmost derivation, E producing E plus F, then E producing E plus, sorry, this will produce E plus ID, then this will produce E plus ID, and then this will produce ID. I'm sorry, this is star. Okay, so we cannot, sorry, the whole thing is wrong. So E producing T is the first step, then T producing T star F, then T produce, this will be T star ID, because this is, as I said, rightmost derivation. Then T produces F, that is the rule, F star ID, and then it will be I star ID. Yeah, so this is the rightmost sentential form. Okay, and we want to trace it back. So right now, as I said, we have reduced up to this much in the second step. So we have F star ID in our sentential form. So now what we'll do is we'll reduce by F by T. Okay. So we'll reduce F by T. Okay. And then we'll push the star onto the stack. So we'll erase it from here and we'll push it on here. And then we'll push this ID as well. Okay. And then this ID will be replaced by F. Yes. This will be replaced by F. Thank you. Okay. And then this F. So we have now this whole thing as the handle, T star F. So we'll remove all these symbols and replace a T. Okay. T. Yes. So F is gone, star is gone, T is gone, and then we'll push a T onto it. We are not keeping the earlier T, but a new T is shifted onto the stack. Okay, so now we have this, and from this we'll go to T. Yes, right. So we'll have E, and basically this is the starting symbol. So we have got E as the starting symbol, and dollar will match. Okay, so we have traced the parts tree. Sorry, we have traced the rightmost derivation in reverse using the stack. Okay, now the question is, sir, at each step, why did you choose this kind of handle? Like, for example, in the first step, you choose F producing ID as the handle. Why? Okay, those things will be clear as we go to the next step, which is construction of the parts table. Okay, so you can see this is how it is done. So first ID star ID, then shift ID, then reduce F, reduce ID by F, then reduce F by T, and then shift star, shift ID, then reduce ID by F, then reduce T star F by T, then reduce T by E, and finally that is how you accept. Okay, now the question is, at each step, why you are choosing a reduction action or why you are choosing to shift, that will be obvious depending on the parts table construction that will follow shortly. Okay, so I'm not going to go into the detail of justifying of using the stack. I'll come back to that in the next class. Okay, now what we have is the concept of viable prefix. Okay, we all know what is a prefix. Okay, what is a prefix, Pranay?
Sir, prefix is the word that is attached below, attached before the original word.
Yeah, so it is kind of similar. So if you have a starting point D of a string, anything which occurs before that is basically the prefix. So substring which occurs before some particular position is prefix. Okay, and similarly we have the concept of suffix. But here we have the word viable as well. So you have a string and you have a prefix of a string, whether that is viable or not. Viable means one that can occur. Okay, which is legal, you can say. You can have various prefixes which are not legal in case of a rightmost sentential form. So the set of prefixes of right sentential form that can appear on the stack of a shift reduced parser are called viable prefixes. Like what we have seen in our earlier example, like for example here, you can see that T star F is a viable prefix, T star ID is a viable prefix, T star is a viable prefix, but E star is not a viable prefix, okay? Because we haven't got it on the stack top anytime. Viable prefix is a prefix of a right sentential form that does not continue past the right end of the rightmost handle of that sentential form. As you can see here, T star ID or T star F, you cannot have any more symbol after F onto the stack because T star F itself is a handle. T star F is the rightmost, it is the right hand side of a production which can be reduced to T. So you can say that a viable prefix is a prefix of a right sentential form that does not continue past the right end of the rightmost handle of that sentential form. Because if you have more symbols, that means you have to reduce that much also, which is against our assumption of handles. So basically, what it means is that if you have a viable prefix, at some point of time, you have to reduce it to the left-hand side of the production rule using that nomenclature. Okay. Now, that means, okay, let me see if I have a little bit more expression. Okay, let's see this example. E producing T, T producing T star F, T producing T star ID, that produces F star ID, that produces ID star ID. we observe that at any point of time, the stack contents must be a prefix of a right sentential form. Did you get this point? So you can see that in the stack we have earlier, this one, if you look at the stack, it is nothing but a part of the right sentential form. Okay. So E producing T producing T star F. So the stack contents must be a prefix of a right sentential form. This is what is most important to understand. So your ID, first you have $ID on the stack. That is part of the that is a prefix of the right sentential form. Then you have F star ID. F is on the stack top. So F is basically a viable prefix of the final right sentential form. Okay. Or T star ID. But you cannot have a E star ID, because from T to E, this kind of reduction cannot happen here. Okay. So whenever you have a viable prefix, that means some prefix on the stack, it is basically a prefix of a right sentential form. If you continue past the right end of the rightmost handle of that sentential form, that what it means is that you cannot have a reduction step, because you are beyond the rightmost handle, right end of the rightmost handle. That means you have exhausted all the handles. So if you have too many symbols, that means if you have more than the required number of symbols, then what will happen? You won't be able to find a handle. That's what it means. So that means it is always possible to add terminal symbols to the end of a viable prefix to obtain a right sentential form. Like for example, here, F is a viable prefix. You add star ID, that is a right sentential form. You have T on the stack top, that is a viable prefix. You add star ID, again that is a right sentential form. You have T star as the viable prefix. You add ID, that is also a right sentential form. Okay, so by identifying a viable prefix, what you are doing is you are identifying the right end of a reduction to be happening at some point of time. Beyond that, you cannot do any reduction. So whatever you have as viable prefix, within that you should be able to apply the reduction step. Am I clear? That is the most important thing to understand. So here that concept of alpha, beta, W comes. So alpha, beta is basically the viable prefix. After that we have W. Out of W, we can create some part of it inside alpha beta, or after that, we can add some symbols of alpha beta. Sorry, after alpha beta, we can add some part of W. Then that becomes the rightmost end of the of any handle. Okay. So it is apparently true that no error as long as the portion of the input seen to a given point can be reduced to a viable prefix. This is most important property of a bottom-up parser. We'll come to that in a bottom-up parser, if you can construct a viable prefix, that means you are not seeing the whole of your input. You are just seeing part of the input, and you can construct a viable prefix up to that point. That means there is no error. The counterpart of this is that the moment you see that you cannot out of given symbols, you cannot create a viable prefix. Like you have created a viable prefix up to the position 5th position, and in the 6th position, you see that the viable prefix is violated, means it is not a viable prefix anymore. That means at the 6th position, you will be able to tell immediately that you have a parse error. Am I clear? This is the most important property of bottom-up parser, is that in a bottom-up parser, as we will see in some instances of bottom-up parser like LR parsers, we will be able to catch an error as soon as the error occurs. So as soon as there is a problem with the syntax, we'll be able to flag an error. It is very efficient that way. It is not possible for bottom-up, for all top-down parsers. Like it might happen that a top-down parser catches the error much later than it has occurred. So maybe it was supposed to flag the error at 6th position, but it could not detect it. It might have detected it after 2 or 3 steps more. But in case of bottom-up parser, because at every step it is watching for a viable prefix, so any violation there will be immediately flagged. Am I clear? This is the most important part you should understand about a bottom-up parser, why it is so efficient. Is there any question on this? Anybody had an issue with this?
Not now, sir.
Okay. So viable prefixes are so important. This is the concept I wanted to explain, because I had a lot of headache in understanding this myself. That's why I gave some extra effort to focus on that. In the next class, I'll be giving a little bit more hint about when you understand it is a viable prefix and when it is not. I'll come to that maybe in the next class with some more examples. So not all prefixes of a right sentential form can appear on the stack. Like for example, ID star is a prefix of a right sentential form, but it can never appear on the stack because we will always reduce a producing ID before shifting star. Please note that. So ID star is a prefix, but it's not a viable prefix. Okay. Okay, I'll come to the viable prefix again in the next class. But before that, we'll start a little bit with the LR parsers today. I'll be completing in another 5-10 minutes. So LR parsers are the most well-known parsers belonging to the bottom-up parser family. It's very efficient to construct, very easy to construct as well. And LR parsers, just like LL parsers, will have a symbol K. So you will have LRK parser, means LR1 parser, LR0 parser, and LALR parser. So how many lookahead symbols you are actually using for your parsing activity? Okay, the one we use for Bison is known as LALR parser, so which uses one lookahead symbol, but constructing an LR1 parser with one lookahead is very expensive, very time consuming. So we actually combine 0 lookahead and properties of one lookahead to create the LALR parser. Unfortunately, because of time pressure, we won't be able to discuss the details of LALR parser construction. I suggest interested reader can look into some references I'll be giving. It is not as trivial as LR0 parser or LR1 parser. LR0 parser is very straightforward, very easy to construct and very efficient, very space efficient and time efficient. LR1 parser is much more complex to, I won't say much more complex, much more time consuming and space consuming. That's why we generally don't use LR1, but we combine the lookaheadness of LR1 into LR0 to give rise to LALR. How it is done is beyond the scope of our syllabus, but as I said, you should read it. There are some interesting things which will come up from there. So we are now presenting efficient bottom-up syntax analysis technique that can be used to parse a large class of context-free grammars. Note that C language is entirely constructed out of YAK, okay, which is the predecessor of Bison. So you can understand a language which is so powerful like C could be constructed using this kind of parser technique. Okay. Now, what is LRK? LRK means K lookahead symbol. It is basically the number of input symbols you are using to make a parsing decision. Like in our earlier case, we haven't shown anything like how many symbols we are looking ahead. Here we'll see how many symbols we are looking ahead to understand whether it should be a shift action or reduce action. You can understand this kind of shift reduce parsers are essentially oscillating between two decisions, whether to take the shift action, means you read the input and put it into the stack top, push it onto the stack top rather, or you apply a reduction rule. So you basically pop n number of symbols from the stack and reduce it by one symbol, which is the left hand side of the corresponding production rule. Now, again, just like LL, we have LR. L stands for, again, left to right scanning of the input. We don't do any other type of scanning, as I said. In case of LL also, the first L refer to left to right scanning. But in LL, the second letter was L, which was tracing the leftmost derivation. Here, we are doing R. R means constructing a rightmost derivation, that also in reverse. So please note that we have the symbol L and R instead of L and L. The first L is same for both cases, but the second letter is L for the LL case and R for the LR case, and the meaning is obvious. In the first case, it was a leftmost derivation. In the second case, it is a rightmost derivation, but we are tracing the rightmost derivation in reverse, of course, because here we are not really expanding, but we are doing a reduction, because we have to go from terminal symbols towards the non-terminal, which is nothing but a reduction action. So that's why we are talking about the reverse thing. Please note that. Now, there are lots of advantages. I don't want to go into that before we understand LR parsers. Then these are going to be obvious. So don't memorize it, understand it. Now we'll go to the construction of basically LR parser table. So you understand, when you talk about a parser, you are given a grammar, and what you are required to do is basically create a parsing table. Parsing table means you have some kind of an input, and you have some kind of a non-terminal symbol. So what is the corresponding action you take? Here, as I said, whether to push the input symbol onto the stack, or whether to reduce it into the right-hand side of a production rule. These are the two choices we have. So we need to create a parsing table which will basically decide these actions depending on the input combinations. What kind of input combinations we are coming in probably in the next class, or maybe a class after that. So LR0 item is another important term. So we have seen handle, we have seen handle pruning, we have seen viable prefix. The fourth important thing is known as item. Item or LR0 item. It is a production G. Production of G. G is the grammar we have. So it is a production of G with a dot at some position on the right hand side. So if you have a rule A producing XYZ, then the items could be A producing dot XYZ, or A producing X dot YZ, or A producing XY dot Z, or A producing XYZ dot. So dot, as you can understand, is basically to indicate the positional aspect we have understood in handle. So basically you can understand these items are going to represent some kind of handles. If you have A producing epsilon, then A producing dot is the only item. Please note this. So if you want to produce LR0 items, we have to do three things basically. One is define an augmented grammar. What is augmented grammar? Augmented grammar is nothing but you have a start symbol S, you add another new start symbol S prime, and add the production S prime producing S. The addition of this will be, the inclusion of this additional rule will be clear as we go forward. So this is the first thing. You produce an augmented grammar. Augmented grammar means add just another rule S prime producing S. S is the old starting symbol of the grammar, and S prime is the new starting symbol of the grammar. It is written, the purpose is written, but I'll explain it anyway. The other thing is define two operations, closer and go to. Okay, so we'll stop here for the day. We'll define the closer, we'll start the day tomorrow, day on Friday, by defining the operations closer and go to, and constructing the item set for the LR0 grammar we have at hand. This is going to be our grammar: E producing E plus T, or T, T producing T star A for F, A producing within parentheses E or ID, and of course we have the augmented grammar where the starting symbol is E prime. So E prime producing E. So this is going to be our starting augmented grammar, and we'll create what is known as the LR0 set of item construction process. Okay, so we'll do that using two operations we'll define tomorrow, day after tomorrow, known as go to and closure. And we'll see how those item construction process help us achieve the goal, which is creating the LR0 parsing table, which will parse a given input string and construct the parse tree in a bottom-up manner. I want to complete the discussion today here only. So on Friday, we'll be starting with this process, and hopefully we'll be able to complete the item construction process, followed by the next week's class, which will be basically explaining the parsing table construction and the parsing process. Once we do that, we'll be going back to the theory a little bit, why we are using stack, why we are using the augmented symbol, and what are the advantages of LR parsers, which will be very obvious from the given context. Also, we'll take another look at the viable prefixes. I'll be sharing this PPT with you today.